it took tenacity, it took persistence, it took a lot of sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
to get to the level of success that a lot of our clients have. And it's a good thing that they are then able to bless their kids with that success.
Yeah.
But one of the comments in some form or another that we hear a lot, one of the concerns we hear is, my kids didn't have to fight the way I fought. So how do I pass on the work ethic? Like, how do I pass on the value of $1? Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Fisher.
And I'm Dave Fisher. We're a husband and wife team of certified financial planners, and together we make up Team Fisher Financial. Welcome to our new series we're calling And Money.
As both a concept and an object, money is a prevalent component of our world and intersects with so many areas of our life.
By the nature of our job as CFPs, our days are filled with constant conversations around money. Conversations we think are vital for people to consider and understand for their financial universe and beyond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of And Money. If you are new to joining us, my name is Lauren Fisher, and to my right is my husband, Dave Fisher. We are a married couple, and we are also both certified financial planners.
Yeah, we are.
We make up Team Fisher Financial, and Money is just all about conversations and topics as it relates to money. And today, in honor of Father's Day, which we have just passed, we are going to talk about kids and money.
Yay!
Which is probably one of the most ubiquitous pieces of financial planning. It underpins, for so many people, a lot of their planning, a lot of their choices, and a lot of their anxieties and their fears around how they plan, and not just how they plan, how they raise their kids, their grandkids, nieces, nephews. Regardless of where people are, there just always seems to be some forward-looking concern for and planning around kids.
Right. And I mean, this happens all the time. People, whether they want to grow their family, literally did a financial plan for a young couple a little over a month ago that wanted to see what it looked like to grow their family. And it's amazing. Then you have the people that are, hey, I'm in my 30s and 40s. We need to bump up our college savings. We need to make sure we're well protected from any risk out there for our family, right? And then fast forward, right? 30, 40, 50 years. Now people are thinking, okay, how do I pass on this legacy and not destroy the family unit? I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where people have a lot of money they want to pass on to their kids, be a huge blessing, and it tears the family apart. So looking at from that dynamic, it's much harder to change how people think when they are in their 30s to their 90s, right? It's very hard to change that dynamic. So why don't we start earlier? Like, that's a concept that I think is lost on a lot of people.
And one thing you didn't mention, another example, is we work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners. And the vast majority of entrepreneurs are first generation,
right?
Who had to claw and fight, and it took tenacity, it took persistence, it took a lot of sacrifice to get to the level of success that a lot of our clients have. And it's a good thing that they are then able to bless their kids with that success. But one of the comments in some form or another that we hear a lot, one of the concerns we hear is, my kids didn't have to fight the way I fought. My kids didn't have to worry about things, or they just have a very different experience than I had. So how do I pass on the work ethic when it's a very different dynamic? How do I pass on the value of $1? And to your point, a lot of people start thinking about that so much later than we think that you should.
Right. Exactly. What they're when they're talking about legacy, And that could be as early as the 40s, but many times it's 60 plus.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to talk about legacy, estate planning. How do we put all of this together? And we want to pass on our values to our kids. That is kind of like looking in the rearview mirror and trying to change what happened
Mm-hmm.
already, what you passed already. And a big focus for our clients, I would say, decisions when it comes to kids is, how do I save enough? How do I protect the family enough? How do I pass on an inheritance? When really looking back at it, teaching your children the concepts about money, it actually is put on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the other things about growing assets and being prepared for these different big life events, that's top of mind. But on the back burner literally is how they think about money.
Yeah.
And you're purposely pushing that off and hoping that they're going to get some level of education from the world, from school, from watching you.
Yeah, like somehow just through osmosis, it's just going to happen.
Right.
And it's one of the few, money is one of the few things in parenting where words speak more than actions.
Mm.
Usually we say actions speak louder than words. And in a lot of ways, that's true with parenting.
Yeah.
Both matter. But if a couple sees their, just as an example, if a couple sees their two kids fighting, they're being mean to one another, calling names, you can discipline that. You can, as you should, you can address that. But if you say to your kid, hey, don't call your brother stupid, and then
Oh, we're not allowed to say that in this house.
we aren't. And then there was a word I said the other day, and Jake was like, Mom, we don't say that. I was like, you're right. I think it was crap. I think I said crap. Because I like stubbed my toe or something. And he was like, Mom, we don't use that word. I was like, okay. But you can say certain things, but then they see your actions.
Yeah.
And so if you're like, hey, don't call your brother stupid, don't say crap, but then you're the one doing it,
Yep.
that speaks louder. They're paying more attention to what you're doing. And parents who try the whole do as I say, not as I do, that doesn't typically work very well, especially as they get older. But with money, the actions are so subtle, especially, we were talking about this before we started recording, especially because we live in a world where no one that I know, except maybe my dad, still carries cash around.
There are a few people I know. It's older generations, and they may want to do it because they like something tangible. They like the feeling of it. They like to be able to pass on maybe a benefit that's tied to just having a cash given to somebody. But
right.
What I find is that we're just in a frictionless world when it comes to transactions and money in particular.
Yeah, so your kids aren't going to see very many actual actions around money.
Right.
Except maybe your emotional tie to it. Like kids are in tune to when we're stressed, when things aren't going well. One of the questions that we ask, we've talked about this in previous episodes, of your earliest memory of money. Usually it's around something to do with like a parent or a parental figure and how they talked about money or how they were dealing with money.
Yeah.
But it's never, oh, I saw my parents do XYZ. I saw them buy this thing. For some people, that might be it.
Sure.
But
if they're older too,
if
I
they're
think
older,
they're more perceptive. But young kids, they don't really see that as much, and unless you bring them in, right? It's the both and, where it's like, hey, we want to do this thing. We're very charitably inclined. We want to show you not only how good giving can be to a cause that you care about,
and it's better to give than to receive,
but the impact that it actually has, helping them to understand what it's doing. It stirs this desire to actually say, I do want to give some of my resources, what I've been building, for a greater good, right? It stirs that in them.
Yeah, but I think one of the biggest myths that we're kind of circling around is most people think that young kids, like, my kids are too young to be talking about that. My kids are too young to understand that. And I would absolutely disagree with that. Because, and some people, I've heard people say like, well, my kid doesn't even really know how to count or add yet. Why would I teach them about budgeting? Why would I teach them about money? Or some people take it so far as like, when they start working, when
Yeah.
they start earning their own money, then we'll start having the conversations. And
Mm.
usually that's 14 at the
Earliest, yeah.
earliest, but usually 15.
Unless you're working in a family business.
Yeah. So that's years of missed opportunities. I actually have these little checker pieces, because my first experience with budgeting had absolutely nothing to do with money. It had to do with TV time. I cannot remember how old I was. I had to have been 6 or 7. My sister was 8 or 9. And much like any kid, even before tablets and all that stuff, like, kids just want to watch TV, and we were no different. And so we would come to my mom all the time. Can we watch TV? Can we watch this? Can we watch this? Can we watch this? Or we, this was the 90s. So N64, Mario Kart.
Oh, yeah.
We wanted to play that game all the time. And we would ask my mom all the time. And she frankly got annoyed at saying no, trying to manage how much time we got. So she came up with this system. And I still remember to this day. On Monday, I got...
What are you holding right now?
They're little checkers.
Pieces?
Checker pieces? Checkers. I don't know. And I got 4 blacks and 1 red. Each black was 30 minutes and the red was an hour.
Wow.
So it was 3 hours of TV time total for the week. And it was our responsibility, if we wanted to watch a show or a movie or play a video game, we had to come and turn in the chip and say, I'm going to use 30 minutes of my TV time. And that was it. And so I remember the first time she introduced this, Monday comes around. I was like, sweet, 3 hours of TV.
Spend it all.
And my mom knew, and she let me do it, and she didn't say a word. And the rest of the week, I was out of luck.
Yep.
I did not have any more chips. And so I started, at first it was like, okay, I'm going to be strategic throughout the week. And then probably a few weeks had gone by. It felt like a long time as a kid, but it probably wasn't that long. There was some week where I didn't spend all of them. It was just, we were busy, or we were out doing other things, or I don't know what it was. And so I had these chips left over, and then my mom gave me more. And I was like, wait a minute. You're telling me I can save these?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, this opens up a whole new world. And so that was my first foray into budgeting. It was time. I didn't care about money at that point. I was 6 years old. There was like, that part hadn't been introduced yet.
But TV.
TV,
that's high up on your list.
Oh yeah. For a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, absolutely. So it's so funny, whenever I see checker chips, I think about TV time.
So what you're saying is, it's very likely, if you're starting at a young age, kids do not care about money. They can't really fully understand it.
They can't
find something they love that is maybe time-based, or you're able to quantify it.
Yeah, because they can't quite most kids can't quite wrap their mind around money and its purpose. Jake, our 5-year-old, is starting to. He's been asking us lately, like, why do you have to work? Why do you have a business? We're like, that's how we buy stuff.
I just want to stay home. I'm like, buddy, it's going to be very boring for you. We're just going to be working all day.
Why do you have to work? Like, buddy, we have to make money so we can buy things. And he's like, what? So at this age, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a lot of impact if you hand a kid $1.
Yeah.
But if you think of something like TV time or Lego time or whatever it is, to introduce budgeting that's with, like you said, something that's quantifiable.
Yeah.
And then that becomes kind of a, because budgeting in adulthood, it's a muscle just like
Mm-hmm.
anything else. And people who've never had to do it, it feels really awkward. It feels really weird. And it's because they've never had to think through it from that level. But if you have a kid who's been introduced to something, the concept at least at a young age,
You can translate it,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Yeah. You start with TV time, and now you equate it to, well, there's actual money that you can spend, you can keep and save, you can invest it. That's different.
mm-hmm,
Like, you can't really invest on the TV time, right?
right,
Um, Now you can invest it and you can give it away.
yeah.
Like, what if, and this is very unlikely, well, what if your sister and you, one of you said, I'm going to be charitable and I'm going to give my TV time to my sister? Very unlikely at this age.
I was like, I don't think that ever
But
happened.
even that concept of like, I care about you. You wanted to
Mm-hmm,
watch this very specific thing, but you spent all your money. How can I help you?
mm-hmm. You spend all your chips.
Yeah, spend all
Mm-hmm.
your chips. So,
And I was usually more likely to spend all mine before, because I was a younger sister. Younger, older sibling dynamic was pretty on par.
pretty well in
Yeah,
play.
she just was more responsible generally than I was growing
Well, coming back to it, I think a big
up.
part of this is we want our clients, we want people listening to this to think about, how are we not just giving our kids a fish to eat, but
Mm-hmm.
actually teaching them how to fish.
Yeah.
Um, you can put, there are people that are worth 9, 10 figures, and you can put every parameter on these trusts, every little thing. You can just
Mm-hmm.
make it an income-based trust. But if you didn't actually teach them the value of money,
Mm-hmm.
how it applies, and the impact it can have, they're just going to think, okay, I'm just going to spend. I'm just going to spend. I'm going to spend. This is what fulfills me. This is what
Mm-hmm.
makes me happy. But they didn't graduate, right? Nobody helped them understand how money can work for you, and also how money can help other people too.
Yeah. And I mean, the checkers example, that's one element of it.
Yeah.
That's, budgeting, living within your means, understanding that like resources run out if you
Mm-hmm.
don't intentionally think through and steward it well.
Right.
But that's one piece of it.
Mm.
And whether you're worth $10 or 10 figures, what's hard for people is the discipline aspect.
Right.
And that gets into work ethic too,
Mm.
because those go hand in hand. Even yesterday, you had to work a little late, so I took the
Yeah.
kids to the park. And Jay, there are these monkey bars at this park, and Jake wants so badly to get to the other side. And it's like there's like probably seven
Yeah.
bars all the way over. And the farthest he's gotten is like 5. And he counts it, and and yesterday he was getting so frustrated. And he was like, I can't do it. You have to help me. And I was like, you can't do it yet.
Mm.
You can't do it yet. And there was part of me that was like, I want so badly to just go over there and kind of guide him across so that he feels good. But then I'm not teaching him to try. I'm not teaching him, hey, you're not there yet, but keep going.
Yeah.
You got to 4. I think he got to 4
Mm-hmm.
today, or yesterday, almost 5. I was like, you got to 4 today. Next time we come, maybe you'll get to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get all the way across without help and it's just you working and trying and doing it, the feeling is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And so we talked about like, this is called a challenge. And in a challenge, you have to work and you have to try. And he was like, I don't want to try.
That's all of us.
Yeah. And I was like, well, you're 5 and I'm not going to help you. So, and he got really frustrated with me. He's like, you're just not helping me. I was like, yeah, you're right.
But you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't see that.
He doesn't.
But that's so much more as the like, comforting mom part of me is like, oh, I want to help him. But the part of me that's like, no, it's so much more important that he learns
Mm,
to work and
yeah.
that he learns that he's not going to just immediately get it.
Hmm.
Because what I don't want is for him to get older and the second something gets hard, he gives up.
Right.
Because if I go in and I help him at every moment where it gets hard,
Hmm.
then that's what he's going to expect. And
Yeah.
he's
He can
never,
turn right to you or to
or
whatever's
he's going
around.
to
Yeah.
expect that there's going to be someone or something around to just automatically make it easier.
Hmm.
And, you know, I I don't want, whether he's 5 or 15 or 50, I don't want him to give up on things just because they get hard.
Right.
And that starts with something as simple and small to me, massive to him,
Hmm.
as the monkey bars.
Yeah. That's a very good example of not only the idea of a challenge, but the progress, right?
Mhm.
It is a process to follow, but we are making progress, right? So you get the feeling like I'm moving further than I was before, or farther. What's that movie that no?
You should have said further.
Yep, there it is.
That's one of my favorite movies, Finding Forrester.
Yes.
Go watch it. It's a great one.
Um anyway, so helping them to understand like even the steps you're taking, we can celebrate that.
Mhm.
We've had
Yes.
clients where it's like a big momentous step was accomplished of maybe 15, right?
Mhm.
We have a long way to go, but that first step was done and we're like, we have to celebrate.
Yeah.
And in the same way, we get to celebrate our kids and how they progress over time. But if we don't take the first step, we're not going to be down here and saying and celebrating this big accomplishment
Yeah.
because we never took that first step.
Yeah. And that's, I think, in my opinion, teaching grit, teaching tenacity, teaching perseverance goes hand in hand with teaching about money.
Hmm.
Because it's like, if the work ethic is not there, that's, I mean, the way that our society works, you work to make money.
Hmm.
And for people who are born into families with successful entrepreneurs, with families who have come into more money,
Generational wealth.
generational
Yeah.
wealth, if that's already baked in for them, then it's that much more important to be intentional,
Yes.
to teach them to use things like monkey bars and TV time and toys and chores to teach them about something that they otherwise, nothing in
Hmm.
their environment is going to teach
It's
them
not
that.
normal.
It's not normal.
Yeah.
And so you have to, as their parent, be intentional and proactive enough to make it normal, which
Hmm.
is harder.
Yeah.
It's harder.
But I know people where they were taught at a young age how money works, how to work hard, um, and their conversations about money. And these are people worth a lot, like
Mhm.
crazy amounts of money, hundreds
Mhm.
of millions, billions, those that category, where they have these conversations and they are the most normal people, well
You'd
adjusted.
never know.
You'd never know
Mhm.
that the money isn't the big care for them.
Mhm.
They care about how that money can make an impact. And from that, from what you said earlier, where you said speaking can be a little bit more valuable in this than just modeling
Mhm.
because money's so frictionless.
Yeah.
A great way to do both is to get them into the same room, talk about the concepts of money, and then actually do something together with that money.
Mhm.
Whether that's spending it on something that they saved for, which is super fun.
Mhm.
Um, I was telling Lauren about this really funny regret I had earlier about buying. It was a 1998 Chevy Corvette, but it was on a platform and it was with money I received from Christmas. Everybody went out to the mall and they're like, "Hey, go find something. You don't have to." And I was very close to saving the money.
Mhm.
And last second, I was like, "Oh, let me just go into the store because maybe I'll find something." And I liked it. I didn't love it. And then the second I took it back to my grandmother's house, I had regret. I was like,
You had buyer's
I did
remorse.
not need to buy this. I could have bought something way cooler. I can't even move it around. It's on a platform. Um, But what I think about that is like bring them into what you're doing. So if you're spending it on something that you're excited about and you saved for, help them to understand what you did, the
Mhm.
sacrifice you made to save for that thing.
Yeah.
Or if you're charitably inclined and you love to give of your time, resources in that way, make them be involved as part of the process of you
Mhm.
giving and
Even if
say,
it's
yeah.
like we give online, even if it's just an online platform,
Hmm.
have them in the room
Yeah.
when you're talking about it. Have them in the room when you're making decisions about how much to give,
Yeah.
because otherwise they're not going to see it
Hmm.
and they're not going to experience it. And I think that's so important. And one thing you told me when you told that story to me last night was that you felt like you'd been given this money and that you like needed something to show for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, well, this was money that was gifted to me, so I should get something like that is a gift.
Mhm.
And that is something I have problems with just naturally. I just store up gift cards and all, like it just piles up, and then I'm like, oh well, I forgot about that. Let me go buy this thing. Um, but just naturally, I think there is something about having that first amount of whatever. When you got your screen time, the first
Mhm.
time you got all of these
All my
chips,
checkers.
right?
Mhm.
All of those checkers, and you said, I'm gonna just have the best Monday ever.
Uh-huh.
And
And it was great. I think I watched like Cinderella and played Mario Kart.
I bet your parents, your mom especially, was just laughing in the corner,
Oh, I'm
thinking like,
sure.
tomorrow is gonna be a big wake up call. And it's much more important that you learn that lesson with something that, I mean, really wasn't worth much. It wasn't a big consequence. You felt it, but it wasn't a
Yes.
big like lifetime consequence versus something that would impact you in devastating ways later on.
Like someone getting their first paycheck and having no idea what to do with it
Hmm.
and then going and blowing it.
Or someone even taking funds and leveraging things that they shouldn't to
Mhm.
go enjoy a lifestyle that they can't afford. Like all of that is built here, like at these young ages. When the kids are in the house, when you have the opportunity, this is when you can build the foundation for them and how they think about money overall.
Yeah, and I've talked about this. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the way I kind of view, you know, every person has like lessons about the world and life lessons that they have to learn.
Hmm.
And by and large, those lessons have a price. Like you have to pay a price to learn any lesson.
Hmm.
And it's some sort of experience cost. And the younger you are, the smaller the price.
Right.
You know, having to go a week without any TV time because I blew my whole budget on Monday is a really, really tiny price to
The
pay
cost is low.
to
Yeah.
learn. Versus someone who maybe gets a great bonus and instead of paying down debt or investing, being strategic with their money, they go blow it on, you know, the most souped up, fancy, nice car they could possibly find
Hmm.
because a salesperson is telling them they can afford it. And yet they have to pay a much higher price,
Hmm.
realizing either you've become, you know, car rich and cash poor, or you get to retirement and have no investments, or you live so far above your means that you crush yourself in debt.
And not just yourself, everybody else around
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah, those are much higher prices to pay. And a lot of times they're cyclical, a lot of
Hmm.
times they're generational,
Yeah.
where the same mistakes are made with money by grandparents, parents, kids, so on and so forth. And part of it is nobody ever stops to have a conversation
Mm.
and nobody ever stops to seek wisdom to say, like, this is not working.
Right.
And so, what a gift you can give to your kid to also let them learn from your mistakes
Hmm.
at a low price and let them have the benefit of your wisdom by giving them
Yeah.
situations where they can learn again
Hmm.
at a lower cost.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. And there are some keys that most people would ask, like, okay, you gave them the ability to have work ethic, you gave them just the basics of budgeting. Now what? Where do we go from here?
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, they are going to reach an age where there are unique things that you can do once they do start making their own money,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be doing construction,
Yeah.
which is what you did as a teenager, working in restaurants, which is what I did. My sister worked in clothing stores.
Mm.
Whatever that looks like, you can start to have more granular conversations
Right.
past just like, hey, know the value of a dollar, know how to live within your means, understand how to steward your resources, and you can start getting into things like taxes. Because
Mm.
I think any teenager who gets their first job and is doing the math in their head of how much they think they're going to make and then they open that first paycheck. I remember I did, and I was so mad. I was like, what is this? Who's taking all my money?
So, and with taxes, and then you have after taxes, like, what do we do now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And without actual guidelines and without you helping them understand your values as a family, they're probably just going to go blow it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that first paycheck, just consider it goodbye. You don't even know what you spend it on. It's just gone. Probably clothes
Maybe.
or different
Well,
things. You never
maybe.
know.
Because some kids are more likely to spend. Others, like you were a
Yeah.
natural
Hmm.
saver. So I think for someone like you, for someone like me, it's definitely conversations of like, okay, let's be wise, don't just go blow it. And even kind of being a pseudo advisor for your kids, because
Hmm.
you can ask them like, okay, what goals do you have?
What's important to
What's
you?
important to you? What do
Yeah.
you want to do with this money?
Yeah.
And start having conversations about, if you're going to go off to college, who do you think is going to pay for you going to the movies
Yeah.
or the gas in your car? Or like, have you started thinking about saving for college?
Mm.
Have you started thinking about what it looks like to compound that money to benefit you in the future just by the type of account you put it into?
Right. Yeah.
But for someone more frugal, it's those conversations too, but it's also, how can we have some enjoyment here? It's not wrong within
Yeah.
wisdom and stewardship to spend
Hmm.
within reason.
Right.
Giving too, like, let's not be misers about it. Let's not
Hmm.
be greedy on either end, either with blowing it or with,
Yeah.
holding too tight to it.
Exactly.
But those are all conversations that are invaluable to be having with your kids. And to be honest, sometimes they're not going to listen. I didn't.
Sometimes.
I mean, anybody with a kid is like, what? No, my kid won't listen to me. Say it ain't so.
Wait, what?
But there are conversations that I remember having with my parents that in the moment as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid,
Mm.
I was like, I'm going to the mall. But I remember them now.
Mm.
They still stuck. They were
Yeah.
still important. I still learned the lessons. Some of it I just had to figure out.
Are you saying there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom?
What? And sometimes the only way to bridge that gap is to make the mistakes yourself.
True. Yeah.
But
And it's nice to make the mistakes at a younger age.
but at least you can arm them as much as you can
Hmm.
with wisdom from your experience.
Exactly.
And that also means this is all assuming that you have your own financial house in order.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, this is completely new. Most people we talk to, their families did not talk about money.
Right.
Their parents were not proactive
Mhm.
about it. And so you have to carve out new patterns
Mhm.
for your kids and your family. And you have to create new positive cycles of behavior.
Right.
And that takes time. And that means you have to make sure, are you paying attention to your tax strategy? Are you thinking through saving, not for college, saving for retirement, and
Mhm.
what investing is doing? Which, again, as I've said earlier, with money, like, the words do tend to speak louder than the actions,
Mm-hmm.
but the actions still need to match up and the
Right.
actions still matter.
Exactly. Yeah. It's both and in that
Yes.
category. And I think if you bring them in, they're much more inclined to listen to you if they see you doing what you're saying to do. It's a both and on that. So,
And they'll be more likely to come to you with
mm-hmm.
questions.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you rather them come ask you
Yes.
than their friends who probably don't
Oh,
don't
definitely
know
friends don't
anything?
know
Yeah.
anything on that. But from there, I think the best thing you can do, there are a few things that we can focus on
Mm-hmm.
as they get older, where they spend their money, how they allocate it, how to invest it, helping them see the dollar go in and it grow. That's huge benefit
Mm-hmm.
to understanding how to invest and to be fine with all the undulations that happen in the market. And then also the giving impact to see what
Mm-hmm.
you are actually doing with that money, and what is that actually doing for, through that organization, through that person, what are they doing to impact the world around them.
Mm-hmm.
That helps us, honestly, to give and to be generous with our funds.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the best things you can do is start young, start small,
Yeah.
and start with something that they care about. TV time.
A new toy.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of ways to be creative with it that isn't just an allowance.
right. And for all of your other kid planning, come to us.
Yeah.
We're very good at it. We talk about it all the time. It's something that's near and dear to our heart, especially after having kids.
Yeah.
Seeing us transform into not just telling people what to do or helping people understand what to do, but doing it ourselves.
Yeah. And the last thing we want to do is, like, the old adage of, the cobbler whose kids don't have any shoes.
Right.
Like, that is the last thing that we want. And so again, we're gonna start small. Jake is 5. We've just started having these conversations with him. Haley's 2. She, like, we're not there with her yet, but we will be. And again, with so many things, it's trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
And some things are going to work with one kid, and other things are going to be far more effective with others, just depending on their personalities. And your kids better than anybody, especially at this age. So starting young, starting small. And I think the last thing is be vulnerable about how you've made mistakes in the past, so that they can learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had a great time talking about kids and money with you today.
Hopefully we can watch this, 5-10 years down the line and see
we didn't know anything.
See how we've done.
We'll see.
We'll figure it out. Everybody's just figuring it out as they go.
Yep.
And so the only thing you can do is be intentional and seek wisdom.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us. We hope you will continue to join us. And we will be back next week.
Yep. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.